Imagine a world where entire towns vanished overnight, where families were torn apart in days, and where no one, not kings, not priests, not peasants, could escape an invisible killer. In the 14th century, Europe faced a nightmare unlike anything, before or since, the Black Death. But what if I told you we've finally cracked its deepest secrets? What caused this plague to spread like wildfire, killing up to half of Europe's population? And why did some survive when others didn't? Today we're diving into the mysteries of the Black Death, uncovering truths that will leave you stunned. Stick with me, because by the end you'll see this medieval catastrophe in a way you never have before. Let me set the stage. It's 1347, and a ship docks in Sicily, its crew barely alive, their bodies covered in grotesque black sores. Within weeks, this mysterious disease spreads from ports to villages, from bustling cities to remote monasteries. People called it the Great Mortality, but we know it as the Black Death. For centuries it's been shrouded in myths. Was it divine punishment, a cosmic curse, or something far more grounded in science? As a history enthusiast who spent years studying medieval records and modern research, I've pieced together the latest discoveries to bring you answers. I've pored over chronicles from the time, cross-referenced them with cutting-edge studies, and even consulted historians who've spent decades unraveling this plague's secrets. What I'm about to share isn't just a story. It's a journey through one of humanity's darkest hours, and it's more gripping than any thriller. Let's start with the scale of the devastation. Picture Europe in the 1340s. A patchwork of kingdoms, thriving trade routes and growing cities. Paris, London, Florence. These were the cultural hubs of the world, but by 1351 they were ghost towns. Historians estimate the Black Death killed 30 to 60% of Europe's population. That's anywhere from 50 to 100 million people. To put that in perspective, imagine half the United States, over 160 million people, wiped out in just 4 years. Entire villages were abandoned, fields left unplowed, and churches overflowed with the dead. In Florence, chronicler Giovanni Boccaccio wrote, "The bodies were piled up like stacks of wood." It wasn't just the death toll, it was the speed. The plague could kill in days, sometimes hours. One day you're healthy, the next you're coughing, feverish, with painful swellings called buboes in your armpits and groin. By day 3, you're gone. So what was the Black Death? For centuries, people pointed to divine wrath or poisoned air, but science has given us a clearer answer. It was caused by a bacterium called Yersinia pestis, carried by fleas on rats. These rats hitched rides on trade ships, spreading the disease from Asia to Europe along the Silk Road. When the fleas bit humans, the bacteria entered the bloodstream, triggering 3 forms of plague: bubonic, septicemic, and pneumonic. Bubonic was the most common, with its telltale buboes and a mortality rate of 50%. Septicemic infected the blood, killing nearly everyone who contracted it. Pneumonic attacked the lungs, spreading through coughs and killing even faster. The combination was a perfect storm, a highly contagious, fast-acting disease in a world with no antibiotics or germ theory. But here's where it gets fascinating. Why did the Black Death hit Europe so hard? After all, plagues weren't new. To understand this, we need to look at the world it struck. Europe in the 1300s was a pressure cooker. Cities were overcrowded, sanitation was abysmal, and malnutrition was rampant after years of famines. People lived cheek by jowl with livestock, and rats thrived in the filth. Trade routes, which brought wealth, also brought danger, connecting Europe to distant lands where Yersinia pestis was already lurking. When the plague arrived, it found a population with weakened immune systems and no defenses. It's like the disease walked into a house made of kindling and lit a match. Yet the Black Death wasn't just a biological disaster, it was a social earthquake. Let's travel to a medieval village to see what it felt like. Imagine you're a peasant in England, waking up to find your neighbour dead, your priest fleeing, and your lord barricaded in his manor. Fear gripped everyone. Some turned to religion, joining processions of flagellants who whipped themselves to appease God's anger. Others abandoned their families, convinced the end was near. In cities, doctors wore eerie beak-like masks filled with herbs, believing bad air caused the disease. These plague doctors were often powerless. Their treatments, leeching, bloodletting, or burning aromatic woods, useless against Yersinia pestis. Meanwhile, rumors spread. Was it the Jews poisoning wells? In Strasbourg, thousands of Jews were burned alive in pogroms fueled by panic. The Black Death didn't just kill bodies. It tore apart the fabric of society, exposing humanity's darkest fears and prejudices. But here's a question that's puzzled historians for centuries. Why did some people survive? This is where modern science has unlocked incredible insights. Researchers have studied skeletons from plague pits, mass graves where victims were buried. By analyzing DNA, they found clues about genetic resistance. Some people had mutations in a gene called CCR5, which made them less susceptible to the plague. This same mutation, by the way, offers protection against HIV today. Isn't that wild? Survival also depended on environment. Isolated communities like mountainous villages often escaped the worst. Wealthy nobles who fled to the countryside had better odds than urban poor stuck in crowded tenements. And then there were sheer quirks of fate. A merchant who avoided a flea-infested ship, a monk who stayed in his cell instead of joining a doomed procession. Let's pause to reflect on the human side. The Black Death wasn't just numbers, it was personal. Imagine a mother in Venice watching her children succumb, powerless to help. Or a priest in Paris, torn between duty and survival, choosing to stay and bury the dead. These stories, recorded in letters and chronicles, hit hard. One Italian writer, Agnolo di Tura, buried 5 of his children with his own hands, writing, "No one could be found to bury the dead for money or friendship." Reading that, I can't help but feel the weight of their grief. It reminds us that behind every statistic were real people, fighting to hold on in a world unraveling. Now let's tackle one of the biggest mysteries. Where did the Black Death come from? For years, historians traced its origins to Central Asia, likely the steppes of Mongolia, where Yersinia pestis lived in rodent populations. Trade routes carried it to the Crimean Peninsula by 1346, where a chilling story emerges. During a siege of the city of Kaffa, Mongol armies, struck by the plague, reportedly catapulted infected corpses into the city to spread the disease. Whether this was the spark or not, Genoese traders fleeing Kaffa brought the plague to Sicily, and from there, it exploded across Europe. Recent studies, though, suggest the plague may have been brewing in multiple regions, with reservoirs in China and even Eastern Europe. The truth? We may never pinpoint the exact origin, but the global trade network was the highway that let it run wild. Another mystery. Why was the Black Death so much deadlier than other plagues? Part of it was timing. The 1300s were a tipping point. Europe's population had boomed, straining resources. The Little Ice Age brought colder winters, weakening crops and people. When the plague hit, it exploited these vulnerabilities. But there's more. Genetic studies show Yersinia pestis evolved just before the Black Death, becoming more virulent. Unlike earlier strains, this version was a master at spreading and killing. Combine that with a society that didn't understand germs, and you've got a recipe for catastrophe. Let's shift gears to the aftermath. The Black Death didn't just end lives, it reshaped the world. With so many dead, labor became scarce. Peasants who survived could demand higher wages, sparking tensions with landlords. In England, this led to the Peasants' Revolt of 1381, a rebellion against oppressive feudal laws. The plague also shook faith in the Church, which had promised divine protection but couldn't stop the dying. Some turned to mysticism, others to skepticism, planting seeds for the Reformation. Art and culture changed too. Paintings became obsessed with death, like the Danse Macabre, showing skeletons leading kings and peasants to the grave. Yet the plague also spurred innovation. With fewer workers, people invented labor-saving tools, laying groundwork for the Renaissance. As an American, you might wonder, how does this connect to us? The Black Death didn't reach the Americas, but its ripples did. The economic shifts it triggered, stronger trade, new technologies, paved the way for the age of exploration. Without the plague's upheaval, Columbus might not have sailed in 1492. Plus, the Black Death teaches us about resilience. Just as Europe rebuilt, we've faced our own crises, pandemics, wars, disasters, and come out stronger. It's a reminder that even in the darkest times, humanity finds a way forward. Let's explore one final mystery. Could the Black Death happen again? Yersinia pestis still exists, causing small outbreaks in places like Madagascar and the American Southwest. But modern medicine, antibiotics, vaccines, sanitation, makes a medieval-scale plague unlikely. Still, the Black Death holds lessons for today. During COVID-19, we saw echoes of the past: fear, misinformation, scapegoating. Understanding the Black Death helps us navigate modern pandemics with clearer eyes. It's not just history, it's a guide for the future. So, what have we learned? The Black Death was a perfect storm of biology, environment, and human vulnerability. It killed millions, reshaped society, and left scars still visible in our DNA and culture. But it also showed humanity's strength, our ability to adapt, innovate, and rebuild. I've loved diving into this with you, piecing together chronicles and science to solve these mysteries. If this story moved you, try this. Reflect on a time when you overcame a personal crisis. How did it change you? Share it in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. And if you found this video gripping, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history's greatest secrets. Don't miss our next video, where we uncover the forgotten medieval queens who ruled. Trust me, their stories will blow you away. See you there.